The Dallas Mavericks acquired through trade Kyrie Irving and they failed to make a trade. Spencer Dinwiddie Dorian Finney is the deal. Future first-round pick Smith and trade for future seconds to Brooklyn. I'm obviously going to for Kyrie Irving. Both sides have spoken about it, but I must start in Dallas because this is as simply as I can. The Dallas Mavericks recently tied the instant long-term prospects for their franchise, the NBA's most unpredictable player. They forfeited 2 starters in the past first and several seconds in the future. Swap out a player who has only younger contract for the foreseeable future and is infamous for being unpredictable and divisive in both his on and off moments. Court both his decision-making and behaviors. Nothing ties Kyrie Irving to the top of the list. The Dallas Mavericks passed the following a few months, and they only engaged in trading. 2 starters are absent, one of whom is one of more skilled 3D and D players overall. Dorian Finney-Smith, and the league they have a future first-round pick. Already made room for another first-round selections in other transactions as well as this. Further restricts their capacity to. After having said that, moving ahead. I recognize the purpose of the trade for having warned mass fans a week in advance. Dallas. A long time that they would include Kyrie Irving they at the trade deadline. Likely to be overjoyed that he is theoretically increasing their team's ceiling, exactly what they need, and have needed, ever since. That Jalen Brunson ultimately visited the New York Knicks required another player. Playmaker needs another opportunity. Designed for late game creation. Luka's offensive accountability Sonic has endured a lot this season. Historic, and Kyrie helps to reduce that. He is now competing at an NBA level. At this time of the year, Brooklyn is a perfect ceiling blade for this roster, but my main concern with this is as soon as the notification arrived, I observed what they sacrificed for my Kyrie Irving. Owing to all the reporting we had received what Kyrie's trading market was about. That during the past day and a half the majority of teams, including the Lakers, received 2 distinct bids. A deal if Kyrie refused to sign it. A continuation of course they won't to forfeit as much as possible, and then they had an offer where they would be able to give Brooklyn more if Kyrie agreed to a 4-year contract or an A2. Generally speaking, it was a 2-year extension as well as this proposition. Brooklyn arrived from Dallas today, and I believed to be one of the deals Dallas was open to trading in return. For a guy like Kyrie, who have a longer period of time than merely in the upcoming months, and that's particularly important for Dallas since I referred to dropping Brunson off in the off earlier in the season and dealing away 2 starters, a team's rookie, and a list without many valuable items. First, there is a reason why they not actually in discussions to exchange for additional stars throughout the league outside of Kyrie due to the fact that they lacked the assets to do so and traded those assets away. Several of those resources for a player quite likely might be at another location in a uniform in a few months, and the cause that Dallas finds alarming if Kyrie leaves in the upcoming offseason. Possibly have the weakest roster in the whole league centered on a genuine superstar. And, if you remove Luka from this Kyrie, the Dallas team, and the off, it's perhaps the weakest roster in this season. Sans Finney-Smith, the league. Dinwiddie is such a reddish color. Lacks a great deal of complexity and, if you take that, complementary players now that the guy is no longer involved. They'll have more capital available, and they had planned on this offseason if Kyrie eventually leaves, perhaps they're able to acquire a star player like Chris Middleton. Despite the circumstances, but if you're trying to construct around a star, Luka. Wish to find a long-term partner. I'm not sure I want a star beside him. Kyrie is undoubtedly the person you want to when you're ready, join your squad. Possess quite modest assets to begin with. And once more, as I have indicated, I completely understand that and am taken aback. Swing, there isn't much value there. In return for a player similar to Kyrie Irving quality, and if he signs and as a role model NBA player in Dallas over the upcoming seasons. Precisely the type of player that alongside Luka, they needed to add, but the likelihood of that occurring in this working out beautifully in my opinion. Which is why the value was where it was, and they also gave up even then. Because he hasn't signed much for him. With that being said, the extension. Brooklyn is a city that I actually kind of like. Deal when Kyrie requested the move 2 days before to today, I had figured whatever worth Brooklyn had not going to be able to obtain was not they continued to very much they were going to try to argue, presuming KD wants to remain and the options available. A league regarding the Lakers, Heat, Mavericks, there aren't many of those. Teams wanted to release certain athletes. Kyrie would receive something in return. Genuinely assist Brooklyn this season. Lakers idea could work. view. Could exchange several firsts and that long-term benefits the Nets, but I didn't believe that in the moment. Kyrie was quite valuable, and if you, a neutral Nets fan who spoke to me when Kyrie requested the trade, If you told me this was the situation without him, Brooklyn was going to decline. Extending his contract with his new team, 10 times out of 10, I would have accepted it. Dinwiddie is at least one of the people. Regarding the Lakers, Heat, Mavericks, there aren't many of those teams wanted to release certain athletes. Kyrie would receive something in return. Genuinely assist Brooklyn this season. Lakers' idea could work. Few of you could exchange several firsts and that long-term benefits the Nets, but I didn't believe that in the moment. Kyrie was quite valuable, and if you, a neutral Nets fan who spoke to me at the when Kyrie requested the trade, if you told me this was the situation without him, Brooklyn was going to decline extending his contract with his new team, 10 times out of 10, I would have accepted it. Dinwiddie is at least one of the people. The process by which they created the Kyrie transaction several days before the trade date indicates to me that they are not up to finished acting. They obtain this future. In addition to several, Dallas, they have Philadelphia's first and seconds. They may employ one of their opening rounds. Brooklyn's own first-round selections is now accessible for trading as well. They have the chance to do so over this coming a few days to swap in Joe Harris, Seth Curry, and some picks or some picks. Few additional assets on this roster and swap out some of the harmful that recently left Kyrie Irving, whether Zach LaVine is involved or not. A variety of players from around the league, or simply keep adding perimeter players that can both defend and shoot around KD while assembling a roster. Like what Toronto experienced when Kawhi was represented by simply a large number of guys that has some offensive and defensive ability slightly surrounding your one true MVP. Kevin Durant is a player of superstar caliber. To me, this is a best-case situation. You hoping for if you were from Brooklyn, from the minute Kyrie asked for the value of commerce in terms of timing and taking into account even the fact because he hasn't consented to a delay with the new team, in my opinion. For each of these teams, one of two methods: Dallas either makes the decision to conference finals, defeat the championship. Kyrie resignations, they've increased the cap on their team and they keep making go side by side with Kyrie around the edges. And Luka have their long-term goals, collaboration between those two men, and they are an elite squad for championships. The upcoming seasons are what the agreement is made for this reason, because it current year raises your ceiling and you paid a relatively modest price for a member of worst-case scenario for Kyrie's talent. Kyrie leaves you in 3 months, possess cap space and just sign back essentially the same role player level to the players you just traded away. In addition to the first, to Brooklyn round pick, and you're back where you were. You began the Luka 1 year later experience, and if he keeps seeing a roster not worthy of the finals, I'm not surprised if this trade occurs. Specifically ultimately results in Luka leaving Dallas and joining a different team or asking for a trade before joining. Because if this fails, I'm a free agent. Additionally, you must presume that there is a decent chance of that. Given Kyrie's recent past, there of teams, I don't believe Luka will be content with simply existing as one of the most successful players in a league every season. There are 45 games, and losing Kyrie and you receive no benefit from, you only sign him back if he becomes a free agent. Players, you're back where you started, began perhaps in a worse position. With such little resources, which is why it's taking a risk like that for Dallas. For Brooklyn can go in one of two directions. Possibly this new roster won't be successful. There are some maneuvers that you can't make. You hope to meet the deadline. You are eliminated this year in the first round. Then you return to your original location. KD wanted a trade in the previous offseason. Possibility exists for anything to fail. Or perhaps on the upper side of this, concentrating little more on your team, on KD, and simply construct everything rather than the many stars on the sky. Simply establishing a very role from the roster centered on Kevin Durant, the team enables you to improve the roster. You're a little bit larger, perhaps matching better with organizations like Philadelphia, Boston. You create a few actions during the upcoming days leading up to the trade deadline, and you not only survive a crisis-odd trade request for Kyrie Irving, but arguably and improve your situation position over the long and near terms. If you want to improve as a team yet don't have in order to address the Kyrie drama and is anticipated free agency this summer, is a very fascinating trade, and one that I believe will carry on. Must remember as a crucial part of whatever transpires over the upcoming few seasons. I completely understand both teams. However, if you want to grade this one, you need time. Dallas gets a C- from me for the offer, and I'm providing Brooklyn, since I'm certain that a week ago they actually refused to trade Kyrie Irving away, independent of this setting, as well as this issue isn't that dire. In return for a man performing at an all-NBA level and as a starter for All-Stars, I can't offer because there isn't much worth. Awarded them a fantastic rating for this. I'm unable to offer Dallas the risk of this. Anything better than a C- from them. if someone other than Kyrie had done this. Irving's strike is almost a home run, but we've witnessed this numerous times. If you're investing in this, take the time. If you're trading assets, man. For him, and you're abdicating decision-making, compensating him in this instance with his free. I have no idea what this agency decision means. A worse match for you in a guy. Superstar franchise and rely on maybe the franchise's future. Compared to Kyrie Irving, and if I had to choose, a forecast of how I believe this will turn out. To return in an impartial manner, critically considering Kyrie's past. Wouldn't be at that surprised if this a new team in a season that falls apart. After a few months, Dallas is searching at a time when they are experiencing the worst. I imagine that Luka is on the league's roster. The Brooklyn issue is far more complex. The way to this being but not the air, nevertheless, a tragedy for Dallas realizing why they did it. And why the risk seems reasonable to me. The possibility of this being a catastrophe is higher still for Dallas. And yes, it increases their ceiling, which increases positively, though, it's a Kyrie band like yours. To anticipate that things won't go well.